That afternoon, the restaurant buzzed with loud, careless laughter, the kind that made a quiet man like Marcus Hale shrink even further into the background. He had spent years working tirelessly as a janitor, cleaning floors before sunrise and leaving long after everyone else had gone home, yet somehow remaining invisible to the very people he served. What he didn't know was that a cruel idea had taken shape among a group of junior managers' men who saw him not as a human being, but as an easy target. They crafted a fake blind date, pretending that someone had admired his gentle nature and wanted to meet him. For Marcus, who had lived through loneliness for far too long, even the smallest hope of connection felt precious. He had no reason to suspect the malice behind it. He simply believed, for once, that maybe someone truly saw him. Marcus spent the night before the supposed date ironing his best shirt, smoothing out every wrinkle as if preparing himself for a moment he had never dared to imagine. Standing in front of a small mirror, he adjusted the old watch his father had given him, a reminder of better days and the dreams he once carried. When he walked into the elegant restaurant, the kind of place he had only ever cleaned but never dined in, his steps were careful, almost timid. Sunlight glimmered off polished glass and silverware, making him feel both out of place and strangely hopeful. He took his seat, glancing around nervously, unaware that in the far corner, the same men who had orchestrated the prank were watching him with smirks and phones ready to record his humiliation. Yet Marcus sat there with quiet hope, believing that for the first time in years, someone might truly want to know him. Just as the tension in the room thickened and Marcus began to wonder if he'd made a mistake, the atmosphere shifted. The restaurant doors opened, and Evelyn Carrington, the CEO of the very company Marcus cleaned every day, stepped inside with a calm, graceful presence that instantly commanded attention. She had been on her way out of a meeting when she overheard the junior managers laughing about their little joke, and something inside her refused to let it continue. Instead of walking away, she decided to intervene in the most unexpected way. As she approached Marcus's table, the men in the corner froze, their laughter dying in their throats. Marcus looked up, stunned, certain that someone like her couldn't possibly be there for him. But Evelyn simply smiled, pulled out a chair, and sat down across from him, turning a planned humiliation into a moment no one in that room would ever forget. For a moment, Marcus couldn't even find his voice, but Evelyn spoke first, her tone warm and steady, as if she'd known him far longer than a few seconds. She didn't mention business, status, or the company they both belonged to in different worlds. Instead, she talked about respect, how often it's withheld from the very people who keep life running quietly behind the scenes. She shared how she'd grown up watching her own mother work exhausting jobs, overlooked and underestimated, and how that experience had shaped her understanding of true worth. As she spoke, her words felt less like a conversation and more like a gentle unveiling of truths Marcus had been denied for years. She told him she saw strength in him, the kind built through resilience rather than privilege. And slowly, the room that once buzzed with mockery grew still, as her compassion rewrote the moment entirely. As Evelyn continued speaking, something shifted, not just in Marcus, but in the entire room. The group of junior managers who had come prepared to laugh suddenly found themselves unable to meet each other's eyes. Their phones, once raised eagerly to capture his embarrassment, were quietly lowered to the table. The smug amusement that had fueled their plan drained into a heavy, uncomfortable silence. Marcus, listening to Evelyn's sincere words, felt emotions rising he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years: dignity, validation, and a sense that maybe he wasn't as invisible as he'd come to believe. Tears gathered at the corners of his eyes, not from shame, but from the shock of being acknowledged as a human being with worth. Across the room, guilt settled over the pranksters as they realized the cruelty they had nearly inflicted, and the moment became a mirror reflecting their own smallness. They hadn't expected kindness to strike harder than any joke they could have made. When Monday morning arrived, Marcus walked into the building with the same mop, the same uniform, and the same responsibilities, but something in the air felt different. Whispers had already spread through the halls about what had happened at the restaurant, how the CEO herself had stepped in to defend the man so many had overlooked. People who used to pass by him without a second glance now paused, offering small greetings, nods, and even awkward apologies. It wasn't dramatic or loud, but it was real, a quiet shift in the way they saw him. Some seemed embarrassed by their previous indifference, while others appeared genuinely moved by the story of what had taken place. For Marcus, it wasn't about the sudden attention. It was the feeling of finally being seen as more than a uniform or a background figure. One act of compassion had rippled through an entire company, reshaping the way everyone understood respect.